As a little bit of housekeeping, I just would like to give you a very brief overview of the agenda. I'd like to start it off by setting the tone for what I consider, and hopefully you'll join me in considering it, to be a safe space for us to just have the best of this experience that we're about to embark upon, where you feel comfortable and safe to ask your questions or just, any comments that you might have. I'll review that. And then I actually will open up with a fairly brief video. It's about 7 minutes that I feel will set the tone for the mental health, mental illness symposium that we're looking at today, just looking at some signs and symptoms. And then the intent behind that is that maybe it too will trigger some questions that you might have to ask our guests, panelists this afternoon. Then following that, we'll have our presenters, and we'll start off with the Honorable Minister Gordon, and that will be followed by Mrs. Zalotti. And then I'll entertain our guests with a few questions, and we kind of is a little bit of a table tennis moment where I'll field some questions with them. But of course, this symposium is for the community and members within the community. And so I will be turning to you, our participants, any of you who are participating live on YouTube or via Facebook. I'd like for you to either just send us your questions, and we would be just very happy to field those questions from you. Then following the question and answers and so on, what I'll do is we're going to have another video that I want to finish the session off, and then we'll call on the folks who are going to be giving us the closing remarks. But this is your symposium, and I am just again reiterating how important it is for me to hear from you, for all of us to hear from each other in terms of any questions, comments, or just experiences that you might have and wish to share. So that's the nature of the agenda, and the session is scheduled to conclude at about 3 p.m. today. So having said that, let's dive in. And so this is just our community commitments for a safe space. We know that learning only happens when folks feel safe and when they are comfortable. And so this is essentially just us saying that we are respecting each other and we're respecting the space. We've all heard it. There's no such thing as a question that's not a good question. It's the unasked questions that won't serve us well. So we need to ask those questions, and just to know that it's a space where, again, there's no need for any fear or of ridicule or any other negative reprisals. We're here to learn, and we're here to grow, and we're going to help each other to do just that. So as I said, I'd just like to lead off with this video. I actually shared this video in a similar workshop that I did actually in Trinidad about 2 to 3 months ago, and a Caribbean audience. It was fairly well received, and I thought that it's something that you might find to be of value. And again, thumbs up, thumbs down if you're not hearing the video.
Hey Psych2Goers, do you remember the last time you felt sad, anxious, or scared that you were somehow off? You're not alone, even if it may feel like it. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, reports sometimes a funk or rough patch can be a sign of something much deeper. This video represents 10 mental health symptoms you shouldn't ignore. Before we begin, we need to warn you that this video may be triggering for some. If you feel triggered by this video, please take care of yourself, even if it means clicking off this video. With that being said, let's talk about the 10 mental health symptoms you should not ignore. 1. You're having feelings of sadness or depression that last longer than 2 weeks. All people experience sadness at one time or another. However, most normal feelings of sadness get better with time. The American Psychiatric Association reported abnormally intense sadness lasting 2 weeks could be a sign of depression. The National Institute of Mental Health stated not being able to snap out of it or sadness being heavier than normal should be taken seriously. 2. You're having extreme mood swings and don't know why. Do you find that your mood seems to switch super quickly or randomly? Klemp and others studied how often the average person's mood shifts on any given day. According to the National Center of Biotechnology Information, NCBI, this study showed people tend to experience positive emotions, such as joy or love, more often than negative ones. But it's totally normal for someone's emotions to change daily. However, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, NAMI, warns especially dramatic mood swings that cause huge changes in your behavior and energy can be a sign of bipolar disorder. Agencies such as the American Academy of Pediatrics say the more red flag signs are experiencing sadness, anger, or feelings of excessive euphoria for most of the day, especially if it has nothing to do with what's going on in your life. 3. Your worry and anxiety have gotten out of control. Have you ever found yourself worrying but can't shut it off? According to the National Institute for Mental Health, it may be a sign of an anxiety disorder. Other signs of anxiety disorders include having problems relaxing, insomnia, racing thoughts, unexplained aches and pains, or being easily irritated. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America suggests that if you've ever felt this way on most days for at least 6 months, you should consider talking to a mental health professional about your symptoms. 4. You've started withdrawing from others or isolating yourself. Taking time away from others can be positive for your mental health and physical health. But what if you constantly make excuses to avoid socializing? Mental health pros, such as Raymond Starr Jr. and Howard Dubowitz, say avoiding people or events you used to enjoy can be a sign of mental illness, such as depression, anxiety, or a psychotic disorder. 5. You may have noticed you're having delusions or hallucinations. Kumari and others describe the two aspects of psychosis, hallucinations and delusions, as a sense of perception or belief that creates a lot of urgency in the person experiencing it, despite evidence the perception or belief isn't real. The National Alliance on Mental Illness reports up to 100,000 people in the US will experience psychosis every year. NAMI further stated 3 out of every 100 people will have a psychotic episode as a symptom of a physical or a mental illness, such as schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, in their lifetimes. 6. You're having more and more difficulty dealing with normal life situations. Have you ever gone through a time in your life when nothing seemed to go right and you just couldn't deal? The Australian Department of Health stated a rough patch that you just can't get past, one that hurts your ability to function for more than 2 weeks to 2 months, may be a sign of depression or anxiety. A major sign that what you're experiencing is more than just a rough patch is when you have a hard time functioning in normal situations for several weeks, according to Mental Health America. 7. You're sleeping too much or too little. The Harvard University School of Medicine believes that 10 to 18% of the general population has problems sleeping. However, Harvard's med school stated either sleeping too much or too little is 2 or 3 times more common in people who suffer from a mental illness. The Harvard Med School stated about 50% of people who live with ADHD, depression, anxiety, or bipolar disorder suffer from insomnia or hypersomnia, which means sleeping too much. 8. You started abusing drugs or alcohol. According to mentalhealth.gov, 1 in 4, or 25% of people who live with the symptoms of a mental illness use alcohol or drugs to self-medicate things like anger, anxiety, or mania. Experts believe individuals who suffer from depression, anxiety disorders, personality disorders, or schizophrenia are more likely to use drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism than people diagnosed with other mental illnesses. 9. You're having extreme anger outbursts. Do you ever feel anger that's almost impossible to control or way too much for the situation? If so, your anger may be warning you about your stress levels, unresolved grief, or your anxiety. Healthline reported extreme anger outbursts can also be a sign of unresolved trauma, bipolar disorder, alcohol abuse, obsessive compulsive disorder, intermittent explosive disorder, or depression. If you wonder if your anger is healthy, experts recommend first recognizing your physical and emotional signs of anger. And 10. you started thinking of self-harm or suicide. The Mental Health Foundation reported up to 10% of people under the age of 30 have thought about self-harm or suicide. There are many reasons people consider self-harm or suicide, such as abuse or neglect at home, a major loss, trauma, or a catastrophe that you can't control or avoid. Brodvik, 2018, reported approximately 90% of people who have completed suicide also suffered from a severe mental illness, such as bipolar disorder or depression. If you find yourself thinking about self-harm or suicide, we would very much like you to reach out to a mental health professional and get the help that you need and deserve. If you can relate to any of these symptoms on this list, you're definitely not alone, nor are you bad for feeling this way. But we want you to take care of yourself, which means reaching out to a mental health professional if you've been experiencing any of the symptoms on this list. As always, any information provided here is for educational purposes only. If you need mental health counseling or treatment, please contact your insurance company, local college's student counseling clinic, or your county crisis line. Keep watching the Psych2Go channel for more information on mental illness and mental health, and remember, help is out there. We'll see you in the next video.
Okay. So I thought that we would just, as I said, sort of set the tone in terms of just recognizing signs and symptoms, and maybe even be able to formulate some questions that you may want to ask our guests later on. So definitely we'll be addressing some of the signs and symptoms that's covered in this video as we go through the afternoon. But what I'd like to do next is to turn it over to the Honorable Minister Gordon and ask, and before I do that, let me ensure that she's unmuted. And so, Minister Gordon, can you give me the sound check, please?
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, loud and clear. Beautiful. And so what I like to do is turn it over to you, and just forgive me here, and ask for you to share what information you have for us. You have about 15 to 20 minutes to share some insights with us.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to greet you at this Health and Wellness Symposium. Thank you to the Afro-Caribbean Association of Manitoba, and specifically the President Donna Taylor and Phyllis Reid-Jarvis, our facilitator, for setting the stage for our discussion today. I commend the organizers of today's Health and Wellness Symposium, and of course, thank all of you for joining together for this important event. And I want to note that it's especially fitting to be gathering during the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. I'm so pleased to have this opportunity to introduce my portfolio and to discuss some of the mental health challenges facing members of the Black communities and other communities in Manitoba. So I'm going to, I think I am listed as a presenter, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can walk through the presentation. You've disabled my screen sharing, so if it's possible to give me access to that. Okay, can we try again? Do you want to continue? And I want to share this one. Share.
Yep.
And I want to play from start. Okay, I hope everyone can see, and we'll get started. So first, I'd like to talk about Manitoba's recently created Department of Mental Health, Wellness and Recovery. So the purpose of the department is to ensure Manitobans have access to the care, supports, and treatment they need in their journey towards wellness, recovery, and healing. Can you hear me?
There seems to be quite a bit of noise coming. I am almost thinking it's on your end. Okay, let's see here.
But you can hear me, right?
I am hearing you. It just a fair amount of obstruction going on there.
Yeah, and there's no noise at all, so I'm alone.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no
Right.
noise.
We're the only two, and I'm alone here. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of special note, the department is the primary contact for stakeholders regarding mental health and addiction issues related to immigrant, refugee, ethnocultural, and racialized populations, including the federal, provincial, and territorial stakeholders, the Mental Health Commission of Canada, other provincial departments, regional health authorities, the Manitoba Association of Newcomer Sharing, serving organizations, the settlement sector, and community-based agencies. Our government recognizes an integrated whole of government approach to providing mental health policy and program supports is needed. We understand that helping those with mental health and addiction challenges is the work of all of us. So we chose to undertake a leadership, coordination, and collaboration role in united the efforts of several departments. So is there still noise in the background, Phyllis? Okay, so we're bringing together the work of my ministry, as well as health and seniors care, families, justice, Indigenous and Northern relations, and the Ministry of Education. So our plan is to create a provincial mental health addictions and okay, it's not advancing, and recovery plan and service delivery model, and to deliver health and active living lifestyles and programming that promote wellness and disease prevention. I also want to make you aware that our government has officially moved responsibility for the administration of the Mental Health Act to my department. Transitioning the administration of this legislation is a first step in the important work the department will be doing to help transform how people access mental health care services. Moving on, I'd like to present you with evidence of some of the health and mental health challenges facing members of our Black and other racialized communities. Specifically, I'm going to take a look at some findings from two sources. Findings from the Health and Immigration Policies and Practices Research Project, which comes out of the province of Alberta. And we're also going to take a look at Manitoba's 2018 Improving Access and Coordination of Mental Health and Addiction Services, a provincial strategy for Manitobans, which we refer to as the Virgo Report. So the research project out of Alberta revealed that immigration status is a major determinant of health, with impacts on ability and willingness to access health services. Also, self-reported mental health of immigrants actually declines after 5 years in Canada, and this is according to Statistics Canada data. Anti-Black and intergenerational tensions are important factors that contribute to the mental health of Black youth. So this is all coming out of that report. And income and community belonging have the strongest influence on immigrant mental health in Canada. And also strength-based community engagement is critical to improve immigrant health. So here in Manitoba, let's take a look at what we found in the Virgo report. So Virgo also heard that stigma associated with mental health challenges and substance use and addictions issues are compounded by class disparities, as well as racial and cultural discrimination. This theme was particularly noted among Indigenous stakeholders, but also expressed by newcomers and refugee participants, including our youth. So challenges raised by some of the participants the Virgo team interviewed included difficulty learning about the Canadian system and customs, exacerbated by challenges with the English language, which was reportedly very stressful and affected the ability to access services. Also, cultural differences in parenting and resulting fears that children will be taken away. Experiences of racism and discrimination, including when seeking employment. experiences of racism and bullying among children and youth, and susceptibility to gang involvement which promises a sense of involvement and belonging, and also challenges finding employment due to language barriers. The Virgo report includes 125 evidence-based recommendations for improving access to and coordination of mental health and addiction services in Manitoba. We're continuing to work on addressing recommendations to strengthen our mental health and addiction services system. So what is happening here in Manitoba? Given these challenges, I want to assure you that mental health services are our priority for Manitoba, and that is why this ministry has been created. A strong mental health and addiction services system is a key component of our healthcare system. As Minister of Mental Health and Wellness and Recovery, I look forward to taking on a leadership role as we address some of these challenges facing Manitoba's diverse population. I'd like to address some of the initiatives our government has taken to date and take this moment to commend my colleagues within government and our partners outside of government, such as service provider organizations, for their good work to date in the areas of mental health and addiction. To date, the Manitoba government has invested nearly $50 million in 29 different projects to improve mental health and addiction services throughout the province. Oops. So we've just, right here. You may be especially interested in our recent initiatives that focus on supporting individuals impacted by trauma. So community-based newcomer trauma-focused services provides immigrants and refugees with moderate to severe trauma and or post-traumatic stress disorder with ongoing counseling, psychological and psychiatric supports. The program is led by 3 community-based agencies that coordinate pathways to the formal health system. We've also expanded mental health services and specialized trauma counseling provided by Clinic with a K Community Health Center and the Laurel Center. These initiatives expand therapy services to those impacted by trauma. In addition, all Manitobans over the age of 16 have access to online internet-based therapy program called Ability CBT. This program provides support to individuals impacted by anxiety related to the challenges associated with COVID-19 pandemic. So let's look at, because you asked me to share with you some resources that are available for seniors. Older adults can access adult mental health services provided throughout the province, not just here in Winnipeg. Some specific mental health services available include the Canadian Mental Health Association here in Manitoba and Winnipeg has a support for older adults 55 plus program. In Southern Health, Sante Sud provides a seniors mental health consultation team through Eden Health Care Services. In Prairie Mountain Health, Seniors Mental Health Services is a team of mental health professionals who have specialized training and expertise in working with older adults experiencing mental health challenges and work with other healthcare providers in the Center for Geriatric Psychiatry in Brandon. Selkirk Mental Health Center provides specialized geriatric mental health services for people 65 or older. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority has geriatric mental health teams who visit older adults with mental health concerns right in their homes. The Alzheimer's Society of Manitoba has many services, including a geriatric mental health team to provide assessment and short-term intervention to people experiencing first onset mental illness at age 65 or over, or people with lifelong mental illness requiring specialized services. Age and Opportunity Support Services for Older Adults provides a wide range of programs and services, including counseling and referrals for older adults. And active aging in Manitoba strives for the lifelong engagement of older Manitobans in healthy choices and behaviors that contribute to physical, social, and mental wellness, independence, and quality of life. You also asked me to share services for children and youth. So in addition, improving services for children and youth with complex multi-system needs was a focus of the Virgo report. In the last 2 years, Manitoba has invested in several initiatives to expand and improve those services. So you may have heard on TV or read in your local publication of your newspaper that we recently created 5 new youth hub sites to expand coordinated access to mental health addiction services to protect young Manitobans. The new youth hub sites are an Indigenous-led hub serving the Centennial and Point Douglas neighborhoods, a downtown-based youth hub located in West Broadway neighborhood, a Westman Region youth hub in downtown Brandon, a youth hub in downtown Selkirk, and a youth hub for families in St. Boniface, St. Vital neighborhoods. We also expanded the Northwest Youth Hub to provide an accessible one-stop service where youth and their families can access required supports. These supports include primary health care, mental health and addiction services, employment training supports, and other social services. The province of Manitoba, in partnership with Shared Health and several philanthropic organizations, will also be expanding the Youth Hub model by identifying more sites as the years progress. Investments to increase supports to children and youth in schools with programs designed to improve mental health and reduce negative behaviors and the effects of trauma are also being rolled out across the province. And I can provide you with a list of those that can be shared with your group. Mental health and addictions treatments. So over the last 2 years, Manitoba has made significant investments aimed at improving mental well-being, reducing substance use, and reducing the effects of trauma. The initiatives in this area range from reducing barriers to care, providing support to withdraw from substances, trauma support, counseling, residential options, and peer support for people with mental health and substance use issues. Our government provides a continuum of mental health and addiction services that are available for all Manitobans of all ages across the province. So some of those services are in hospital and community settings. The regional health authorities also are responsible for rollout of these services. Some grant-funded nonprofit agencies and by Selkirk Mental Health Center and Addictions Foundation of Manitoba. And you may have heard that those 2 entities will be moving to Shared Health. So the importance of community. As you can see, we have challenges to address, but I'm grateful for the support and input of our community partners, and that includes the good efforts of the Afro-Caribbean Association of Manitoba. So before I close my presentation, I'd like to express my appreciation for Manitoba's strong sense of community during these unprecedented times of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is regretful that so many of our regular activities must be postponed during this time, such as Folklorama and the ACAM's wonderful Africa Caribbean Pavilion. Still, in spite of these difficulties, I take pride in ACAM's continued commitment to promoting and developing a sense of unity and community spirit. Thank you again for the opportunity to offer remarks at today's symposium. I anticipate an interesting and educational experience for all of you. I look forward to your questions. And again, in my role as Minister of Mental Health, Wellness, and Recovery, I look forward to working with many of you as we collectively address the challenges of mental health, addictions, and wellness in our community. Thank you again for the opportunity. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Minister Gordon. That was very, very informative and quite detailed, and certainly hoping that there are some questions and comments from the audience. I do have a few, but I'll reserve those until later. So what I'm about to do next is I will give the controls to Ms. Zalotti and my guy on the end here, because I am not seeing my, where's my panel here? Let's see, so let's take that back. Just bear with me 1 second here. We're gonna withdraw host permission from the minister, and we're just gonna give it to you, Mrs. Zalotti. Okay. Are you Velvet? Is that how you're showing up? And she is muted. I'll have you, I've just asked you to unmute. Velvet, are you able to unmute? Oh, okay. Okay, Antoinette, I'm trying to find you. Oh, trying to find you here. And while we wait through this, I invite you to do some nice deep breathing and just digest what the ministers just shared with us. Here you go. Okay. Forgive me. Antoinette, you're listed as Antoinette. Forgive me here. I thought you were. And then let me just give you the controls. Your name is very jumpy. It's just moving around here. Okay, where did you go? Here you are. All righty, so I'll make you co-host. All righty, so Ms. Antoinette Zalotti, you'll share some insights, information with us regarding the Black Canadian Mental Health Promotion Kit.
Thank you. And Phyllis, it's always lovely to see you, and it's so nice to meet so many of you for the first time. Also, I'd like to welcome all of you to my presentation, which is called Towards Positive Change, and it is actually an adaptation of the name of the project, okay, that I'm the project lead for. Okay, so I am also especially honored to be here with the Honorable Audrey Gordon, Minister of Mental Health, Wellness and Recovery. This is very historical in Manitoba and in Canada. So also on behalf of my team, I'd like to thank the Afro-Caribbean Association of Manitoba for your invitation to me as presenter at this symposium, and also other organizations and individuals for their participation in the project so far. So together today for mental health, who are we? We're people who are experiencing mental health issues, which are normally called lived experiences, or we are people who are connected in various ways through family ties, friendships, workplaces, etc., and are therefore having shared experiences, or people who may have future experiences or become aware of others who will. So an overview of the presentation is that I'm looking at providing you some background statistics and general information, an overview of the project, which again, with a shortened version is Towards Positive Change, as well as looking at some general information regarding promotion of mental health. So about 9 in 10 Canadians have reported mental health and have received care, mostly through family members and also friends. Okay, so about 1 in 10 young Canadians are likely to receive care for a mental illness. In terms of diversity now, the Public Health Agency of Canada indicates that the Canadian population is becoming more diverse and multicultural in nature. And also there was an estimated 1.2 million Black people who lived in Canada in 2016. And we can see that that has increased since then. As well, the mental health of Black Canadians, there has been a decrease in the mental health of Black Canadians over 4 years, and these were tracked. And so the mental health is on the decrease. As well, Canadian Community Health Survey in 2019 estimated that 7% of Black Canadians were likely to report suicidal thoughts in their lifetime. As well, 2% of Black Canadians likely reported to or consulted a mental health professional between 2015 and 2019. So some definitions that we have, actually, we've defined them in the toolkit, and I'll talk more about that coming up. But just to indicate, mental wellness being a state in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Mental illness being health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these, and are associated with distress and or problems functioning in school, work, or family activities. Mental health, the emotional, psychological, social, spiritual, and behavioral well-being of an individual. Now, again, we have many other definitions in the toolkit. So in general, some of the things that I was asked to take a look at, and I thought I'd do a pre-look at these things, were economic and social impacts of untreated, mistreated, or undiagnosed mental illness. So some of the economic factors would include missed working hours. So when you miss working hours, you miss income. So then there could be insufficient money left to pay down on that first home, insufficient funds for tuition, education, and so on. So it has economic impacts beyond just whether or not you're not able to work. As well, there are social impacts as well. For instance, missed opportunities to actually do a really great job of parenting, or even parenting, period. Also missed social occasions with families and friends and so on. And in terms of community, missed opportunities for contributing to your community through volunteer work, making poor housing choices, or poor housing choices being available to you, and so on. So in terms of the prevalence, diagnosis, and treatment of mental illness, there is value in collecting race-based data, such as the proportion of Black Canadians living with mental illness, because this data, if used, it could be, and it should also help to inform the nature and quantity of resources needed to meet the specific needs of Black Canadians. So diagnosis and treatment data are also important for comparison among Black communities, since we are diverse. We have varied employment, educational levels, age groups, and so on. So race-based data, there's a barrier to collecting race-based data because a lot of people doubt whether or not this data is going to make a difference. in these health, social, educational, and justice and other systems. But yet statistics often help to make the case for needed resources. So we still need to participate in when we're called upon, because data can lead to more culturally based resources being provided and developed. One of the things that people might ask is like, why a toolkit for Black Canadians? Now, one of the things that we are more subject to is structural or systemic racism. And this is where a system in which public policies instill practices and other norms that perpetuate racial group inequalities. So these play a role and causes barriers in the care for Black Canadians. So like, for instance, the last time you walked into a personal care home or a hospital, you might not have even seen evidence of structural or systemic racism, but take a look at the decor, the physical decor, mealtime and food choices, the magazines, the pictures on the walls, and even the number of people who have sat on the boards of these organizations and like hospitals and so on. Take a look around and you watch to see whether you see any racial representation of you. Also among professionals, we're seeing more and more psychiatrists coming from Africa, and that's good to see. It's good to see more Black people going into nursing and so on. But again, when you look at representation around a boardroom table and so on, there's just not the same kind of representation. So obviously, what has been set in place over the years remains in place. Okay, so we're required to adapt to these spaces equally, and especially at our most vulnerable times. And these are designed and operated by other cultures, but yet we're expected to accept these policies and practices without questions or any chance of changes. So, okay. So then people arrive in Canada from all over the world with attitudes and teachings about mental health, as well as the care options, which differ in all these countries. We're the same, but yet we're different, right? So we come with different bodies of knowledge. One of the things about the toolkit is that it brings a lot of that knowledge together with respect to mental health awareness. But organizations like ACAM have provided and continue to provide a great deal of support for Black people who are newcomers or who were newcomers who came here in the 50s and the 60s, and people who are born here as well. A lot of young kids really need to get in touch with their roots, and organizations like ACAM help them to find their sense of belonging and to see people. So these organizations can help shape and design and operate our future mental health system for people in Black communities and the community at large. So also the other thing that happens to people in resources are what's called microaggressions. Some people don't believe in them, but they are verbal, nonverbal, and institutional and environmental slight snubs or insults, which intentional or unintentional, they can communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons basically solely on the fact that they're part of a marginalized group. But even within our Black communities, we tend to also, because people might be poor or people may be LGBTQ, we also have to watch our microaggressions where it comes to that. Questions like, oh, have you found a nice guy yet? When you're talking to somebody who has obviously not chosen that or is not interested in choosing a guy to spend the rest of her life with. So we have to watch all of those as well, because all of this affects our life and our mental health. Okay, so when they occur in the workplace, and we could talk about this a little bit more later, an employee does need to address them and seek ways and pathways for addressing them. So here we are African and Caribbean organizations. And yet when you look at the Canadian Mental Health Association during 1948 to 1998, the word culture doesn't really enter into a lot of what they developed. Yes, there's social action, but the focus has been on mental illness and mental health. Now we're looking at other things. We're looking at culture. We're looking at race. So African and Caribbean cultural organizations need to learn more about mental illness, recovery, promotion. We also need to show society how we are supporting and nurturing. And also we need to tell people that stress needs to be attended to and they're not weak. Okay, we need to encourage people to seek help. Also, we need to teach the children about care of their own mental health. A lot of times kids make very bad decisions as they're coming into the teen years with regard to substance use and so on, or maybe trying to make a fast buck with drugs or alcohol, and then paying for it for the rest of their lives. There's a mental health day annually, and that is something that we as our organizations need to start paying attention to and look at celebrating our mental health and helping people in our community. And when we're advocating for an individual or advocating for a cause, we need to look at the options that will vary according to what has occurred. So whether it's in an educational setting, workplace, or an environment. And we need to take that issue and look also in terms of legislation. Is it entrenched in legislation or not? Here we are working on this toolkit, and we're not even sure if our governments are of the day are actually going to take our work seriously and help us to share that. So there's where symposia like this one comes in. So Black people need to be more engaged in mental health awareness, in community resource design and delivery. So if we don't participate in research, and if we don't participate when called upon to sit at the table to look at the future of our service system, then we're making a really big mistake. So again, my congratulations to Afro-Caribbean for sponsoring this symposium. We need to see if other organizations that are present today might want to link to our toolkit, and also pay attention to the legislation and so on. That is so much a part of our day-to-day life. It does impact us. So turning just quickly then to the project, I'll just give you some snippets about it, okay? Because you can go online to our website and check it out. So this mental health promotion toolkit that we have developed is designed to highlight culturally relevant information and resources for increasing knowledge and awareness on mental health and well-being of Black Canadians in Manitoba. So we're currently assessing the extent to which it's effective in raising awareness and increasing knowledge. Our team is made up of some fabulous people. We have ambassadors who have been with us. Our team has been with us right from the beginning, and the beginning being fall of 2019. Our project has had to adapt to the fact that we are in a COVID crisis situation where we had a lot of plans to see people in person, but we have not been able to. The project's applicant is the Barbados Association of Winnipeg, and we have in our consultant group ACOMI and CCOM, JAM, a Women's Health Clinic, WRHA, CMHA, and other community members at large. So we've held forums, we've had focus groups, town hall meetings, we've had a key informants group meeting, and we just finished some orientation sessions to Toolkit where we did pre-tests and post-tests. And also we will be going back to the organizations. Some 40 plus organizations have actually participated in sending representation to the representatives to the orientation sessions. So we're going to be looking at the results, and we've actually started to do that. And we're looking forward to doing some follow-up with the organizations come end of June. And our toolkit table of contents, as you can see, covers a really vast number of social determinants of health. Actually, that's what we focused on in terms of the toolkit contents. Right now, what we're in the middle of doing is that we are offering free self-learning option and a free virtual Zoom group learning option through our website, where our team members take turns being available to show you the toolkit and to take your questions and comments. As well, we, because it's Monday to Friday, it's like having a virtual office where people can come and drop in. If they can be of any help to the organizations in terms of looking at their websites and looking at how maybe our web expert could help them, you know, that is one of the things that we will definitely be interested in helping with, and anything related to the project. So we have organizations, as I said, who are going to be contacted at the end of June. So to maintain and promote, just to sum up, to maintain and promote mental health and well-being at the personal level, your friends and family, and at the community level, I went through some thoughts and came up with some words, A to Z, okay? And going from awareness, building bridges, not barriers, okay? Community support and participation, providing capacity building in organizations, development of culturally based resources, economic security for all, equity and educational opportunities, environmental safety, fact finding, not myth supporting. As well, we're looking at strengthening community support systems and genetic acceptance, not rejection. This is what us as Black-led organizations have to look at. Genetic acceptance, not rejection of people. As well, government support. We may need to have to do advocacy at times to make our voices be heard, as we know from all the experiences we're having in the legal system. As well, historical events, recognition, interest in helping others, justice. We want to keep connected. We want to listen closely without judgment and have loving relationships and manage our time. It is a precious resource. The other thing is neighborhood safety, peer support, not denigration, because a lot of young people really need to pay attention to that, is not denigrating somebody because they're being treated for a mental illness, but supporting them, okay? Question the wrongs and make note. As well, make sure there's representation. Keep on the pressure to have representation at all levels. Rights, you need to know them, and we need to know them. We're all still learning, okay? So responsible parenting from the start, self-esteem, work on keeping that, self-awareness, self-efficacy. Also, success. We need to keep pursuing success in education and work, even as we face mental health challenges. And we need to support people who are trying to do that. We need trusting relationships, understanding of others, validation of research. If we don't validate the research, it doesn't go as far and wide. So that is mostly through participation, workplace policy awareness, and we need to have zero tolerance of racism, youth empowerment, and zealous promotion of mental health and well-being. So thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate being here. Together, Black-led organizations' history in research and our contributions to the mental health promotion and resource development can be recognized, just as other organizations have been, where our cultures can become more visible for all of society to also access. So thank you, and I look forward to further discussion with you.
Thank you so much, Antoinette, Mrs. Zalotti. That was just tremendous. Yes, just both of you have given us so much food for thought, and it really, is an honor for us to be able to gather in this manner. And so there's lots of information that's been provided to all of us, and as a result, we have some questions. So let's see now. I think I have removed, yep, I have. And let us get to this. So we'll set the stage for where we're going to go next. And that is, we're going to have some Q&A. Whew, I was taking quite a bit of notes and just really moved by the work that both of you are doing. Extremely moved. So I thought I could open up the discussion just looking at, first of all, some general information about mental, and I'm going to say illness, because we want to acquire mental health, or if we have it, we want to maintain it. We also know that it's extremely important for us to understand mental illness for what it is. So I actually, in both your presentations, I know the Minister Gordon, you talked about the Virgo report, which came out in 2018, and Mrs. Zalotti, you talked about the need for race-based data and some of the barriers that prevent Black Canadians from participating in these important surveys, studies, etc. So first to the minister, and then Mrs. Zalotti, if you could also comment. I actually would like to know, in regards to the Virgo report, what, if any, component of it had taken any sort of considerations for an informed approach when we look at the health, and for today's purposes, the mental health of Black Canadians. And oftentimes my questions are very clear in my head, so just let me know if there's clarity needed here. But I just want to know whether there was any informed input that came from culturally appropriate organizations, and in this regard, Black Canadians. Oh, do I have you muted? Forgive me, I do need to have you unmuted. Okay. There we go. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Excellent. Oh, hold on. Oh, you're on twice, actually. So I'll unmute the other Audrey Gordon. There we go. Should be able to unmute the other one. There we go. Thank you
for that question. So with the Virgo report, before it was written, there were many focus groups held. There were a variety of forums. There were surveys done, and it wasn't. It was across the province. It was with Indigenous people, as I mentioned before, and it was with uh, our Black community. I could get you a list of the the Virgo report sits on my desk. I call it my Virgo Bible, and it's like this thick and never leaves my desk. And it just lays out all the participants. I think there was over 300 different groups that and individuals that were interviewed. So very much a broad cross section of the Black community was spoken to across the province. One of the things I talk a lot about is that I call it perimeter-itis, where we think that everything that is happening in our province only occurs in Winnipeg, but there's a lot happening outside of the city, and Black Manitobans can be found all over the province.
That's very
So
true.
in Prairie Mountain, in Thompson, in the Paw. If you travel the province, you will find Black Manitobans everywhere. And so there was a broad cross section of individuals that were from the Black community that provided input into the recommendations that came out of the Virgo report. So I think it was very, very extensive. Dr. Rush, who wrote the report, is highly regarded and admired across the country. So he spent months and months interviewing and speaking to Black Manitobans.
I really appreciate that. And I do have a follow-up to that overview, but I'd like to know, Mrs. Zalotti, do you have anything that you'd like to maybe respond to that question regarding the Virgo report? Did I mute you again, or is that you? Okay, I thought I had left you unmuted.
Okay, good. Yeah. No, you can hear me now?
I am. I'm hearing
Okay,
you.
yeah. So I think that when we are kind of I want to say blended in with everyone else, as opposed to brought out and asked some specific questions and pulled together as a distinct group, when that's not done, it is possible that we can just sort of get washed out among the 31. I think it's a population of Canada now is 31 million. So
yeah, it's about that. Yes.
Being a minority, the numbers can even disintegrate after they're analyzing data. So one of the good things that I do like is when there's a call for participation from a particular group, because then you know that you are going to hopefully hear from them. Mm-hmm. Although there is always that possibility that people will say that's not for me, like when there's a general call. Mm-hmm. I don't have to be there. They're not going to listen to me anyways, or somebody else in the community is doing it. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to go, or I'm not that important, whereas they are important and they should go and attend.
Very, very valid points. And so that would be the follow-up question that I have. And Minister Gordon, I don't know if in preparing for today's symposium, if you had a chance to tease out the data from the Virgo report where it actually speaks to what Mrs. Zalotti just shared with us, the impact on Black Canadians, because as you rightly said, we're so small. It's, you're adding this little grain of pepper in this sea of salt. And so it just gets washed out. So was there any aspect of the report at all that was teased out that could speak to Black Canadians' mental health needs and general health needs? Why is this thing doing this to us? I keep So I think what I'll do is I'm going to just unmute everyone and then individually. How's that? No? Okay. I keep unmuting the wrong.
Hi, I'm unmuted now. So thank you very much for that question. As I mentioned before, the Virgo report is quite thick and very extensive. What I tried to do for today's presentation in the limited time that I had was to focus on the goals that I was asked to address as a presenter. So focus in on the programs and services that were available for youth and for seniors, and touched a little bit on some of the findings from the Alberta report and the Virgo report that focused on Black Manitobans. But there is a lot of information in the Virgo report based on forums and surveys and discussions that were held with the Black community. If I was asked to just focus on that, I would be more than happy to give more extensive information, but I did want to respond directly to what I was asked to present in
Appreciate that very much. Yeah.
But always willing to share the entire report as well, so that
if it's that thick, I don't think we want the entire report now, do we?
What we could do is just share the 125 recommendations.
That would be important and relevant.
I'm willing to do that.
So for both our guests, one of the questions that was put forward is, how is the data being used to provide culturally appropriate and relevant care for Black Canadians? And so again, I'm just really interested, and I'm hoping that the folks here on the within the forum also are curious to know how that data is being used. And we're talking about culturally relevant care. And Mrs. Zalotti, you're showing as being unmuted, and also the minister. So we should be good. Please do not touch your buttons at all.
Okay. Because we are in a promotional kind of project, I would say that that's a really good step. And it's a really good step towards possibly there being more services in the future that are culturally relevant, and more services that are developed where Black people are sitting at the table in helping with the design, from the design of a facility to right up to, talking about what kind of meals are going to be served in the facility.
Absolutely.
And,
That's a solid
yeah.
point.
So I would say that right now there isn't a lot of data that is being used to provide culturally appropriate and relevant care, because I don't see it. My mom's 89. My dad would have been 94 today. And my mom is being looked after by one of my sisters, with the rest of us helping out. And when I look around at personal care homes in the city, I see and I hear about people being scattered. There isn't any one Black-led organization right now that's actually looking at that to see if these people are really happy being scattered. But I was told that some people like to be not mixed with the rest of the Black people, and that is a problem. I think I want to hear from some of the people who are present about if they've heard about things like that, where some people have said, oh no, I would want to be in a home that was mostly Caribbean themed or what have you. I want to be in with other people from the community. And yet most of their lives, they have socialized with people from the Caribbean,
from their community.
Yeah, from their community. So it's interesting how some people do make that choice, that they don't want to mix.
It's interesting, that point, and I actually would love to hear from the participants whether it's something maybe you're looking to the future. If you end up in one of these care homes, if it's a home that you would rather be made up of people who are from your community, so they're your own cultural background, the African Caribbean community, or not at all. And maybe had I known this, I could have put that as a poll just to get a sense of where people stand. But feel free to use the chat function and just send me in your comments if that's something that you feel is important to you. And while the minister maybe thinks about what the response is to this question that you've just responded to, Antoinette, I just want to quickly share that about 20 years ago, when I was first working as a registered dietitian here in the province, I actually was working at one of the local care homes, and it might have been maybe a 250 bed facility. And there was one resident who was from one of the Caribbean countries. And I was the only Black dietitian, actually healthcare provider in that particular home. And I remember the day when she first saw me, her eyes lit up and she said, "Dear, dear," and she beckoned me over to her. And, after she asked me my name and so on, she said to me, "Can you ask them if they can give me a little rice?" Because she was getting food, as you said, Mrs. Zalati, that was not what she, culturally was used to and wanted to eat. And she literally was just begging, "Can you get them to give me a little rice?" So I hear what you're saying, because I have seen it as a healthcare professional in the years that I've been working. So I'm not seeing any responses from the chat. And does the minister have a response to what Mrs. Zalati just shared?
Thank you for the question. I want to start by saying that the creation of this new ministry offers tremendous opportunities going forward. So just think about what this mental health, wellness, and addictions programming looked like before January 5th. It was embedded in a huge ministry of health and what is now called health and seniors care. And that ministry is very medicalized and very focused on treatment. And so by moving mental health, wellness, and recovery to its own department, it dedicates a new department, a new leadership team to looking specifically at those issues, talking to groups such as the Black community, the Indigenous community, the Asian community about how their communities are impacted, their specific communities impacted by these conditions. So to answer the question about how the data is being used, so again, the Virgo report has many recommendations. That's not the only report that we're looking at. We're looking at the Illicit Drug Task Force report. There's the West Broadway report that recently came out addressing the meth crisis in that downtown area. So we are sitting down with specific groups, and I will be meeting with Ms. Zalati in May to look at her report and her findings. And so this is the beginning of us sitting down specifically with targeted groups to talk about what are the needs of your specific community and how do we work together to address the challenges of your community in terms of the struggles with addictions and mental health. So the data is being looked at now. And going back to my announcement a couple of weeks ago about the Youth Hub, one of the reasons why United Way selected the Youth Hub that will be created in St. Boniface and St. Vital is because that specific Youth Hub is going to serve the newcomer, refugee, newcomer, and immigrant community, as well as the Francophone community that makes up a large part of the population in that area, that through the data we received from the Virgo report shows that there are struggles. So we are responding in an evidence-informed manner, and we are looking at the data, and we will do even more of that as the creation of this department unfolds. So that has not lost its focus at all, and I will be paying close attention to that as I oversee this new ministry.
Excellent, thank you. And just very quickly, we have a couple responses, and so far they're both saying they'd rather be in a home with their own people, appreciates diversity, would rather be in a home that incorporates policies and programs that reflect the population being served. And so for our guests, that's something that definitely, as you proceed with the overseeing for the minister and the implementation of the mental health promotion kit for Ms. Zalotti, those are things to keep in mind. There's a question from the audience, and the question is, lots of information to digest. I have a question for the Honorable Minister, and the question is mental health illness treatment free in Manitoba? And then there's a follow-up to that for you, Mrs. Zalotti, regarding a request to explain the toolkit. And again, everyone, I just invite you to send your messages, your questions, comments, and so on in through the chat, or just put your hand up and I will unmute you.
Thank you so much to the participant for the question. So the question is mental health treatment free? And it is, and it's offered in many different agencies, hospitals, and programming. So what we found in the Virgo report is that we need to improve access to and coordination of those services. So we have between 47 and 50 service delivery organizations that are at the community level providing supports. We have them in the hospitals, at Selkirk Mental Health Center, AFM, a host of different agencies, but a lot of people don't know about them. And they don't know how to access those services. And if you read the Virgo report, Dr. Rush refers to our current system as being a pinball machine where you enter, but then you're bounced around and you're not sure what is next or what the transition points are. So what we need to do is improve our communications to the public about mental health services, where to access them, at what levels, what tier, because people experience different levels of struggles. So what types of services do you need? Some individuals have said they don't need to see a practitioner. They would like to do self-guided treatment. So we need to now get a suite of services available for all levels of needs. So it is free and it is available, as I said, in the acute care setting as well as in community. Would be happy to after this event share some of those links and access points that can be then distributed to all our participants. But yes, it is free.
I certainly appreciate the response because I heard you mentioned, Minister, that it's usually, well, it is currently embedded within an acute care setting. And as someone with a healthcare background, I know that it's often seen as more from a disease, perspective or angle, as opposed to recognizing that there's a lot of value to be had in placing emphasis on community care, community treatment, and management and prevention as well. So well said. Ms. Zalotti, would you like to respond to the question, please?
Yeah, actually, I know someone had asked for me to explain a little bit more about the toolkit, which I will do. But just going back to the cost of care, if an individual starts to experience losses in terms of their cognition and heading more towards possibly a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and other disorders, if they're looking at, say, assisted living, or they're looking at supportive housing, These options may be outside their financial capabilities. So the expectation is that for most of those beds, the person has to be able to finance their care prior to going into, say, long-term care, which could be subsidized, but they may not be ready, or neither might they need to be in long-term care, but out of financial situations they end up. And this comes from like my work in the home care policy and program analysis and so on, within government, is that I have seen that where as people age and their income is decreased, then certain housing with care options are not as open to them if they have lower and reduced income. So that's something that really is worth looking at, because the population, especially the population of people from the Caribbean, are getting older. And whereas it's good to hear about the youth and some hubs that are being provided for the youth, it would be good to see more options that are income subsidized for people who have Alzheimer's disease. So with regard to the toolkit, in a nutshell, I really, again, would encourage people to go to our website. It is actually, it should be linked after this symposium to the Afro-Caribbean Association of Manitoba's website, so that all you would have to do is just click and then you'd get over there, because we do have the self-learning. So it is set up right now, everything is online, because we're not printing actually a booklet. The booklet that you'll probably end up with might look something like this, or smaller, that you're going to be able to just put in your purse and use for reference and so on. COVID has caused many of us to make so many adaptations, because we had hoped to have given you the first edition by now in a hard copy, but that is more a little later in the summer that you would be able to get that. So for the individual who is interested, or any of you who are interested in seeing it online, actually we have two fantastic people who we had actually go through the toolkit and present it, and we video recorded them, or recorded them. I don't have to say video anymore, I guess, but we recorded them. So that's also available online if you want to do your dishes while you listen, or and you don't want to actually read every single word. We have Tracy Ann Campbell, who is actually from Jamaica, and originally, and she works with CMHA, only one of, I think, 3 Black people who work with CMHA Manitoba. So there's a whole area of increasing even access to people of color among existing organizations, to make sure that if people want to have that cultural connection, that it's there.
Well said.
She is one, and the other person is Dr. Ka, and he is fluent in French and in English, and he is also one of the presenters on that presentation. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Mrs. Lottie, may I just ask you if you have it there in front of you, just maybe in response to
Pull
the
it up.
question? Not just pull it up, but yeah, and maybe just speak to the 30,000 level feet and say, you know, these are the sections that
Oh,
the
okay.
kit is comprised of, and just some of the exercises. Just take a few minutes and go through that, please.
Okay, do you want me to show it, or?
Actually, if yeah, absolutely. So let's
okay.
make you co-host, and why not do that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I need to go back in here and do screen share. Continue. Okay, and then I do share. Yeah, one of the things with toolkits that I find especially interesting is that you can put in worksheets into it. And that is one of the things that we do have in there. My co-investigator, or actually she is the principal investigator, Charlotte Luwanga. I think, Charlotte, you're on the call right now too. I thought I saw that you were here at some point. Maybe it would be good if we hear from you.
Yes, she is. I can, would you like me to have her on mute?
Yeah, unmute her. That would be good. I'm just looking at, we have a lot of files with respect to this. So just bear with me for me to find it for you.
And while you're looking for the kit, you know, there are a number of reports, Minister Gordon, that you mentioned, the Alberta report, West Broadway report, and so on. And I'm just wondering, even in regards to those 125 evidence-based recommendations from the Virgo report, just being in this symposium and sort of hearing some of the questions around the need for culturally appropriate health care for Black Canadians, sort of what, if any, plans are there in place or considerations for this way of delivering healthcare to Black Canadians?
Am I unmuted?
Oh no, I hope, you see, I didn't mute you, but.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes, I am hearing you.
Yeah, I can hear her. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to take away from the great work that has already been done in the previous Ministry of Health, Seniors and Active Living, which is now Health and Seniors Care. So what I think has happened over time is because we focused more on physical conditions, that some of the great work that was being done by organizations all across the province was lost in the work of other programs and services. So there has been culturally appropriate services being delivered by many agencies. What we'd like to do with this new ministry is elevate that work. And the Virgo report has provided us with the framework to be able to do that. And as I mentioned before, creating this ministry also allows us to do that by having its own leadership team and a very very focused goals on ensuring the needs of all populations and all diverse groups are being met. So what we did see over the past year was that COVID amplified many of the issues that were already present in the mental health and addiction systems. And so we've created this ministry to really dive in and do a deeper dive into what do these particular communities need that our systems possibly may not be providing right now. So the budget, we're just going through the budget process. Once the budget is approved and the leadership team is in place, we'll be able to do those deeper dives, like my upcoming meeting with Ms. Zalotti, where we'll be talking about what is happening within our Black communities. And I'm also meeting with Muslim groups and Asian groups and talking to all the different diverse I'm going up north, on those, on a complete tour of some of the First Nation communities to see what is happening up north and what the issues are. So really taking a very cultural approach to delivering services. So I look forward to a lot of really great announcements that will be moving forward in the next few months. I think the community will be very pleased.
Excellent. And I must add that, that is a lot of work that you mentioned that's already been done. And so it just makes good fiscal sense to tap into that work that's already been done. Unfortunately, what I do know is quite a bit of that work that's been done hasn't always been done very specific to the needs of Black Canadians. And so I think just some food for thought here is whether we actually don't need to reinvent the wheel for some of the groups that are here in Manitoba, because they've just been studied. But I don't think that as a group of Canadians, Black Canadians, that this is a group that's been well studied, that they're well documented in regards to needs and challenges regarding health and wellness. And in fact, I believe last fall, late fall, it was the very first time that Manitoba actually collected some race-based data that showed the imbalance in how the pandemic is affecting and impacting different groups. And we, for those of us in healthcare and have, we see what's going on, it wasn't a surprise to know that it's the people of color, folks from BIPOC communities, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, and so on, who are more affected. So I guess what I'm saying here is that maybe there needs to be even more work done looking very specifically at Black Canadians and gathering that specific data so that we can have informed programs and resources available for them. So Ms. Zalotti, it looks as if you're ready to give us the 30,000 feet overview of the kit.
Well, again, just a little snippet here. Basically, what we have is we have it in PowerPoint, and we have the plan is to have it as well in hard copy. Okay, so there are quite a few slides right throughout it, and it is probably much better for all of you to either go online and check it out yourself individually, or join our group, as I suggested, to maybe they can walk you through it, or if there's particular parts that you're interested in. The social determinants of health being housing, how we are treated in society with respect to racial, our racial makeup, and our identity, and all of these other items that people don't actually, or factors that people don't actually think about with respect to mental health. Like, I think especially, say, for instance, areas like housing, like how many people actually really think that it has an impact. And it doesn't mean that we need more public housing thrown at us, but we need to have the jobs and the supports and be treated in fairness and with equity, so that we can compete in the market, in a housing market, or be given some assistance, given the fact that for so many years we didn't have those opportunities. So some assistance to be homeowners and so on. So I think that the toolkit, when you go through it, you'll go section by section. And what you'll find is that with each section, there's a lot of information, but also there's an opportunity for you to do a worksheet at the end of each section. And the worksheet is very short. It's not anything that you have to be really worried about, but it really does help you to think, okay, what did I just read? The other thing I just wanted you guys to know too is that there are some lived and shared experiences that are mentioned in the toolkit, and you might be interested in that as well. So there's a lot of dimensions, conclusions. There are some really good recommendations. The resources are listed and references. Does that help a lot in terms of even just looking at this table of contents? Does that answer the person's question?
I hope so, and I invite the person to maybe respond, but this is what I had in mind as that 30,000 feet view.
Yeah.
I must say, everyone, I've had the honor of participating in a number of the, I guess, versions of the toolkit. And you're absolutely right, Ms. Zalotti, that the last page of each of the sections where you do a short quiz is very powerful in cementing the information that you just read and just sort of bringing it home so that the knowledge or information that you've gathered is actually reinforced. So again, everyone, I do invite you to go to the website. Ms. Zalotti, if you could just drop the link in the chat so everyone can see the link and they could just make note of that, please. That would be
Sure.
Great. Thank you so much. So, so there's another question that just came through for the minister, and it says here, how are they going about collecting race-based data? So I believe, Ms. Zalotti, you had mentioned that, and I might have asked the minister that question. So I know it said for the minister, but it would be wonderful if both of you could respond. So, Minister, would you like to address that first, please?
Hi there. Thank you very much for that question. The race-based data that is being collected at the moment is being collected in my colleague, the Minister for Health and Seniors Care, Minister Heather Stephenson. It's being collected in her ministry. So that ministry has the team that is looking at gathering that information. Then, of course, that information is shared with myself, and it will be shared with Shared Health and WRHA. So it's being captured in another ministry, but we are co-joined, of course, so we'll be sharing that information. So the specifics as to how it's being done, I could get that information back to you, but it is being captured there. And I want to go back and just respond a little bit about the studying of the Black community. Our community has been, in my view, overstudied, and many people have said, you know, they're suffering from study fatigue, because there are reports, not just in our province, but across the country, that is being done. And I referenced one of them in my presentation, the Alberta research that speaks to issues that affect Black people across the country, regardless of the province they reside in. Halifax, and the great work that is being done by the Black Parliamentarians team, of which I'm a member, has a lot of information on the Black community, the impacts, the social determinants of health impacts. And so what I am doing in this ministry is I intend to use best practices from around the country. So yes, I'll be looking at data and research embedded right here in the province, but I'm talking to Ontario. I have a meeting with the Minister of BC next week, with the Minister of that is in Alberta. And so I'm going across the country to gather best practices and research that has been done outside of Manitoba that can be applied to Black communities in any province. Because what we need to do is to begin to implement and to really have programs available at the grassroots. So the studies are out there. I have a niece that lives in Ontario who's a clinical psychologist. She has been studying the Black community for years. And there's great data and information that we need to bring to Manitoba and start application. So I'm very, very committed to being results oriented in this ministry and to applying immediately data and evidence-informed information to development of programs for specific community groups.
Well said. And just something to maybe think about, Minister, I guess this might be a question. I know it's a question that I have, but others might have it as well. when might we see some of the results from these studies that are going to be compiled? We know it takes time because it's a big country. We're very spread out, quite diverse, and it takes a lot of man or person power. But I'm just very curious to know whether there's some projected time frame as to when we can start to see some tangible evidence of this very culturally relevant and appropriate care strategies, approaches for Black Canadians.
Thank you for that supplementary question. So I think some of that is there now, and I referenced the Youth Hub, which was an announcement. So the ministry certainly didn't wait for the entire leadership team to be put in place or for the budget cycle to be completed. We immediately started to announce programming. So for example, with the Youth Hub, our government promised 3 youth hubs. We announced 5, and 2 of those additional youth hubs, one is Indigenous youth led and the others for newcomers and Francophone communities. That is because we are aware that those communities are being disproportionately affected by mental health and addictions issues, particularly during COVID. So one of the things I'd like you to watch for in the next week or so, I will receive a mandate letter from the Premier. That mandate letter will lay out what my requirements are as a minister in terms of delivery of programs and services. And so I would say that announcements will begin to be made very, very soon. It also, if you take a look at the budget document that was prepared for this budget cycle, there's an accompanying document within the larger report specific to this ministry of mental health, wellness, and recovery. And it talks about the consultation that we will be undergoing with stakeholder groups and the community over the next year. So what you'll notice in that budget document is that the only ministry in terms of resources, staff, and dollars that has moved over to this new ministry in the budget cycle is health. We still need to move families, education, justice, and Indigenous and Northern relations. But we are going to do that by having discussions with the public. So we will be undertaking a year of consultation with many different groups, talking about what makes sense in terms of development, further development of this ministry. So lots of opportunity to provide feedback and to tell me as the minister what makes sense for the Black community. So looking forward to those discussions.
I am also, and it's very, very exciting times ahead. This is just really valuable information. And as I scroll through, I know we do have a number of community leaders in this, participating in this forum. And so absolutely, if you have some questions, we still have about 10 minutes before we do the wrap up of the symposium. It would be a very helpful just to hear from you. So I see, Ms. Zalotti, that you've placed the link for the mental health promotion kit is in the chat for everyone to see. And it looks like there are no more questions so far, but of course, don't be shy. Just feel free to submit your questions. So as a way of wrapping up this symposium, I have many questions which the minister and Ms. Zalotti, you've just so graciously answered. I really appreciate you taking the time to prepare your presentations. It's just it is indeed an honor for you to do this. We know how busy everyone really is. And so what I'd like to ask both of you right now is, what are some final remarks you each would like to leave us with? And as I said, we do have now 9 minutes before we come to a close, so it's not too late for the participants to submit maybe one or so question. But to both our honorable guests, what are some final remarks that you each would like to leave us with?
Okay. Maybe I'll go first with
thank you.
that. First of all, I just want to clarify that the meeting that Charlotte and I had requested with you, and Minister Gordon, was really to discuss the toolkit first and foremost. I mean, I'm very pleased that you're willing to go beyond that because we see we've learned a lot through this toolkit. So just as for clarification, and I hope that in bringing together other people who you regard as leaders in the Black community, that there'll be lots of opportunities for that. I'm sure, yeah. And I really think that I look back at one of the things that some people have said in the past is that a society being judged by how it looks after its most vulnerable. And we are not always, we are going to be in and out of health in terms of our own mental health and wellness. We will go from one state to the other. And so it is all our business, and it's getting back to your theme. It's everybody's business. And so I, again, congratulate you on this. This is tremendous, that what you've done today. I think it is wonderful. And I hope that other leaders of other organizations will take the opportunity to also pull together some people to have and keep the dialogue going, as well as bring in some experts from different organizations to hear from them as to their work and how they can be more culturally safe.
Mm-hmm. And may I just ask you to, if there's one question that you'd like to ask the community leaders and even individuals who are interested in volunteering regarding the mental health promotion kit, this is your opportunity to make a pitch. Is there something you'd like to ask?
Well, I would really like to ask them to come to our virtual space. Come engage our team. Bring your ideas, bring your areas that you could use some support with from our team. We do have some time over the next few months. We have our entire team with us until the end of September. Nice. So we would really like them to do that and really look at how they might be able to do some awareness themselves. And if they need some assistance from our team in setting up some awareness opportunities, then, you know, I'd like to ask them to please don't be shy.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And is that awareness, are you referring to the opportunity for these organizations to maybe run some information sessions about the kit themselves? Yes?
Well, yes. And actually, they can book a time that mm-hmm. they would like to bring, say, about 10 or 12 people or how many people they'd like, because sometimes people feel comfort in being with people that they know.
Absolutely.
And also looking at their organization, they might want to have other people there who have similar ideas and similar goals for the organization. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, strengthen community. Thank you so much. I appreciate those final remarks. And I'll just turn it over to the minister now for some final remarks.
Thank you very much. So again, I want to thank the Afro-Caribbean Association of Manitoba for this opportunity to spread the word about the ministry and some of the struggles and challenges that have already been identified and the actions that have been taken by our government to address those issues and what I plan to do as the minister going forward. I do want to highlight for you some of the overarching views that I have about the ministry. So I was very pleased when the Premier sat down with me and talked about my appointment, because he raised the need for us to focus on wellness. So wellness is not often spoken about, and wellness is the prevention side of the work that this ministry will be doing. And around prevention, you know, when I speak to different audiences, I use the statement by, I think it was Nelson Mandela that said, we spend a lot of time pulling people out of the river instead of preventing them from falling into the river in the first place. And so that is the upstream prevention work that I want this ministry to focus on. So I no longer want wellness to be the orphaned cousin that no one really pays attention to. I am going to enhance smoking cessation programs. I am going to enhance healthy living, healthy eating, exercise programs. You'll see some videos coming out of me cycling very soon, doing some work with Winnipeg Trails. So I'm going to be focused upstream as well, even though I am focused as well in terms of downstream treatment. One of the areas that I want to spend a lot of time as well is decreasing the stigma related to mental health and addiction. So we know that a lot of people, not just from our community, but other communities, do not seek help because there's shame and there is so much stigma attached to mental health and addictions. And so I don't want it to be just one day, Bell Let's Talk Day, and people come out and talk about their issues. I want it to become more normalized because it affects every family in some way, shape, or form. And so I want to spend a lot of time with my communications team working on different initiatives to decrease the stigma around mental health and addictions, doing a lot of health promotion. So I don't want us to lose sight of that. So if the community has ideas about how we can prevent some of the issues that our seniors and young people are experiencing, I want to hear about those. How do we go upstream and stop our young people and seniors from falling into the river, so to speak? So
Well
please
said.
do not hesitate to bring those forward. Again, we will be doing 1 full year of consultation, and it's going to be very broad consultation. Sometimes I will be involved, sometimes members of my team. My new deputy minister was announced, Kim Kaufman, who's currently the CEO of Eden Health Care Services. She has extensive background at Selkirk Mental Health Center, highly regarded and admired and respected in the province. She'll be leading some of that consultation work. So make sure that you get involved, because
Yes.
I don't want to hear later on that the community didn't have an opportunity to have their voices heard. Because there, as Ms. Zalotti said, there are times when these opportunities are available and someone says, oh, someone else will speak for me, or let someone else go. But we need to take responsibility for our community. It's not, cannot just be on the government's, asking the government. We need to take responsibility. So I look forward to hearing from the many groups that will be presenting during this 1 year period of consultation. Thank you again for the opportunity today. I learned a lot, and thank you to all the participants for your questions.
Well said, and thank you so much. And the quote or the tweet of the day is, we need to take care of our community's health and not just keep asking the government to do it. So that is the challenge that the minister has left us with. I know I'm taking up that gauntlet that has been thrown down, and I hope those of you who are listening in will do so as well. I'd like to, at this point, ask, I do see Mr. Errol Bryan. I think he's on. He would like to say a few thank yous to our guests. And just bear with me here as I scroll through, because he is likely muted. Not seeing, oh, I see Carmen. Okay, boy, so let's see. Okay, so the person who will be doing the vote of thanks, could you speak, please? I've just given you all permission to unmute yourselves. So just unmute and you can.
Can you hear me?
You bet I can. There you are.
Hi, greetings, everyone. I am sure that we will all agree that today's symposium was very beneficial to most, if not to all of us. We are thankful to our great team who put this event together. So on behalf of our president, Donna Taylor, and the board of directors of ACAM, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister of Mental Health, Wellness and Recovery, Audrey Gordon, for being here with us today. We know that you have a very busy schedule, but the fact that you are here to enlighten us about the healthcare system and the resources that is available to us speaks volume of your commitment to our community and to Manitoba. We thank you. Mrs. Antoinette Zolotti, thank you for being here with us and for addressing mental health awareness. We know that you have been very instrumental with mental health awareness promotional toolkit for Black Canadians and is looking forward to its conclusion and results. And we thank you very much. To our facilitator, Mrs. Phyllis Reid-Jarvis, CEO of Ultimate Potentials. We thank you for not just being an excellent facilitator, but for the behind the scenes work that you and your team at Ultimate Potentials have done for us. We certainly look forward to working with you in the future. I believe that as a result of this symposium, we will leave here with the knowledge of how to access the resources that is available to us and to recognize the stigma that prevents people from seeking help when needed. Once again, on behalf of the president and board members of the Afro-Caribbean Association, we thank you for all your participation. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Well said. Be well, be safe, stay healthy. Have a good afternoon.